Is the South African government doing enough to support victims of the Nigerian tragedy? Will TB Joshua be allowed on South African soil? What does government's medium-term strategic framework entail? And does the ANC not want to be asked questions in Parliament? What time is it? It's question time. Welcome to the show. My name is Mpho Tsedu. It has been over 100 days since Minister in the Presidency responsible for planning, monitoring and evaluation, Jeff Radebe, was appointed. He has been the face of government regarding developments around the Nigeria tragedy. On the other hand, at the National Conference of the ANC in Mangaung in 2012, the ANC adopted the National Development Plan Vision 2030 and termed it a platform of action by all South Africans to address the legacy of apartheid colonialism. My guest today is Minister in the Presidency, Jeff Radebe. Minister, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mpho, and all your viewers of Question Time. I'm very happy to be here this afternoon.
Now, the first question I asked was, is the South African government doing enough to support the victims? Perhaps just give us the latest update. 62 people have been identified as South Africans, and initially 82 or 84 are said to have passed on.
Well, first of all, let us take this opportunity of expressing our deepest condolences to the families of the bereaved 84 South Africans who perished at the synagogue in Lagos about 10 days ago. I must indicate that the total number of those who have been deceased, 115, while South Africans are 84. We have been able to identify positively 62 South Africans through forensic scientists from the South African police services and the Department of Health. Our government, your government, is doing all it can in order to ensure that the mortal remains of those 84 South Africans are brought back home to South Africa. I can indicate that on Monday, the 22nd of September this year, we were able to bring back 25 of those injured South Africans who are now, some of them are in the Steve Biko academic hospitals. 2 of them have been transferred to other hospitals because of families who requested that. Four have already been discharged, so there are 2 who are still in a critical condition.
Now, you were appealing for calm and I don't know whether you were saying families must allow or give time to government to ensure that the remaining, or rather the remaining process is actually allowed to unfold.
Yes, definitely. We do understand the frustration of family members because they need to get their loved ones back at home. But the process of identifying the deceased as South African is time consuming. There are about 5 methods that we are using. The first of all is to positively identify the deceased person, which means that we require a person who knows the person in Lagos. The second one is to have a photo of the person, and then through the features of that deceased person, you can be able to compare. And then the third one is to use fingerprints. The Department of Home Affairs officials are there in Lagos together with the police service. They'll be able to compare those fingerprints with the population register in South Africa. The fourth one is to use dental records that are not more than 8 years of the deceased. So we are contacting the family so that we can have access to those dental records. And the last method is that of a DNA, where we'll take a DNA sample from family members and then compare it with the DNA that would be found there. So all this process is time consuming, and but I can assure South Africans that we have a forensic scientist led by Professor Ras there in Lagos to ensure that this process is speeded up as soon as possible.
You know, what you're saying seems to me that South African government is playing a central role here. What is the Nigerian government doing?
Well, the Nigerian government, both the federal government and the state of Lagos, are also playing their part in assisting South Africans as we speak. The postmortems that are being conducted by Nigerian pathologists also include our top scientists, including our chief pathologists of the state, in order to ensure that we don't repeat the same process when the bodies come back to South Africa. So we believe that that process will speed up the agency with which we want this thing to be completed. And
how long do you think this is still going to take?
I will not be able to provide with certainty how long it will take, but the mere fact that it has taken a couple of days to reach 62, I do hope that as soon as possible we meet every 12 hours as the interministerial team in order to get a report from our team of experts who are now based in Lagos. So as soon as they give us the green light, there are about 70 experts from the Defence Force, Health Services, Department of Health, will be dispatched to Lagos to bring back the mortal remains of the 84 South African citizens who have perished.
It's going to be very difficult, though, Minister, because, some of the bodies could probably be squashed beyond recognizable state.
Yeah, that's the sad part. When you saw on that TV clip how the building collapsed, you can imagine the state of decomposition, take into account the temperatures of Nigeria, as well as the building, the accident, the incident itself. So regrettable, some of them will not be recognizable.
Now, let's get to the man himself. He has indicated, and I'm talking about TB Joshua, he has indicated that he would want to come to South Africa either to pay homage, but to also try and ensure that the number of people who travel to Nigeria to see him is reduced. Will he be allowed into South Africa?
Well, it's still early days to delve into that type of issue. We've heard the voices from the youth and the women about the sentiments, because as you can understand, the nation is grieving because this is actually a national disaster. 84 South African citizens perishing at one go. It induces a sense of shock. That is why, as a government, because of our compassion, of our care about South African citizens, we have ensured that we leave no stone unturned in getting to the truth. So I think a question like that, at the moment, we are not entertaining it as a government, because our main preoccupation is to bring back those 84 deceased South Africans back. Then at a later stage, we'll be able to reach the bridge whenever we confront it.
Okay. Any possible day of national day of mourning or memorial?
Well, those discussions have not as yet taken place. As government, are going to be consulting with family members in order to ensure that we do as they wish, because we will be dependent on the wishes of the family members.
Okay. Minister, let's take a break, and when we return, we're going to look at other matters relating to the portfolio which you are in charge of at government. This is Question Time. We're going to take a quick break. Please don't go away.
Guinea is reopening an Ebola clinic in its remote southeast in an effort to prevent sick nationals seeking better treatment elsewhere.
The new labor law also seeks to clamp down on violent strikes by holding a trade union liable for violence committed by its members during a strike.
The new canal is set to boost annual revenues to about $13 billion by 2023. It's part of a larger project to expand port and shipping facilities around the canal.
This is Vigigas's fourth victory on the PGA Tour.
That's all the weather that I have for you for now. Stay tuned.
For all your business news, catch news at 1 every day. Be informed.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is the Minister in the Presidency, that is Jeff Radebe now. Minister, let's talk about the medium-term strategic framework, the MTSF, which is planned for execution between 2014 and 2019. And this is a strategy, I would suppose, to implement recommendations or plans within the NDP itself.
Most definitely. I think the starting point must be the National Development Plan, our Vision 2030, where we want to see South Africa 16 years from now. So that plan of 16 years can never be completed in 5 years.
Okay.
So that is why we have taken the whole of the National Development Plan and broken it down into 5-year plans. So the medium-term strategic framework, therefore, is a summary of what we need to achieve in the next 5 years of this current administration led by President Zuma in order to ensure that by 2030 we would have reached those targets. So in other words, this medium-term strategic framework is a building block towards the fulfillment of the goals that are enunciated in the National Development Plan. It consists of about 14 outcomes with targets for each sector, be it the economy, social transformation, social cohesion, issues around education and health, etc., in order to ensure that we get all national departments, provincial departments and local municipalities moving in one direction in implementing the National Development Plan. Because, as the President has indicated, the National Development Plan is our overarching plan. Everything must be subsumed under this NDP, so that a clarion call must be made not only to government but to all South Africans to put our shoulder on the wheel to get into our Vision 2030.
One of the points that have been raised in the MTSF is improving service delivery. And I can't help it but imagine that this is a thorn in government's body, if one may call it. Because, I mean, every day, service delivery protests. How are you going to address that?
Well, it's a valid point and a very good question. First of all, let's talk about the good news. The good news is that since 1994, monumental achievements have been attained by the ANC government in all spheres of human endeavor in our country. If you look at education, monumental achievements of ensuring that primary education is provided to our children. On health, pregnant mothers, children under the age of 6. If you look at social activities like social grants, 16 million South Africans have access to social grants. But having said that, we are the first one to say that that is not enough, because the challenges that we still face, coming from 300 years of colonial rule and 40 years of apartheid, can never be eradicated in a mere 20 years. That is why the issue of service delivery is at the center of this National Development Plan. Our President, during the State of the Nation address, was the first one to admit that many of these service delivery protests are genuine because of people not getting the services that they deserve. The President has appointed Minister Gordon in an interministerial team to focus on service delivery, especially on local government. Last week, on Friday, there was a local government summit where the clarion call is back to basics.
Okay.
Local government must, before it does anything else, it must ensure that the potholes are filled in our streets, that when you open the tap, water must flow out of it, that there must be electricity, etc. So this going back to basics will go a long way in ensuring that we deliver services to our people. But government on its own cannot do this if it doesn't have a collaboration with communities.
Okay.
So we challenge communities that over and above leading protest of service delivery, let's lead initiatives in order to improve service delivery so that there's a partnership between government and communities.
Performance agreement with ministers. Those, what will happen, excuse me, what will happen to those who are not performing?
Well, first of all, let me explain. with the medium-term strategic framework having been accepted and adopted by government, we are now in a process of the President signing performance agreements with all his ministers. We expect that this process will be finished before the end of November 2014, after which, as the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation will be able, therefore, to evaluate and to monitor all government departments that they are achieving the targets that are set in the MTSF. Since 2009, President Zuma has not been afraid, he has been resolute, where in instances of not good performance, for him to change his cabinet. So it's simple as that.
Do you have capacity, though, monitoring and evaluation, and perhaps even in the area of research and development, to evaluate government's performance?
Well, let's start in the beginning. This issue of performance monitoring and evaluation is a new system in South Africa. It only started with President Zuma in 2009. There is a department with a Director General. We know as well that before the creation of this new department, my predecessor, Minister Trevor Manuel, was working with the National Planning Commission, which is a commission that is primarily led by people outside of government, for good reason, because we wanted a plan not of the ANC, not of government, but of the people of South Africa. That plan is there now, of which most South Africans agree with. So we're now creating that capacity of taking the National Planning Commission Secretariat and also merging it with the department there. Will require also more resources in order to ensure that we have capacity in government, so that this institutionalization of planning in government can be able to proceed with speed.
Now, one of my favorite areas would be the apartheid spatial development, right? Which ensured that blacks live far away from the places where they work, you know. How are you going to deal with that?
We've already started a program there involving several government departments. There is a document that the Department of Planning is actually conceptualizing now of a national spatial development plan in order to ensure that when the Department of Human Settlements delivers houses, it must be in a manner that produces a non-racial communities of our country, so that this legacy of apartheid can be eradicated. We also will be working with the departments of trade and industry, so that when they do plans for where industries must be, it must not be far away from where people live. Because as we know, that the majority of South Africans now live in urban areas. So this issue of urban planning is of critical importance as well. That is why the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs has produced a document on urban planning for public comment. So all these initiatives will be coordinated together on the National Spatial Plan that the Department of Planning will be producing.
Hold that thought there. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll wrap up the program. This is Question Time.
In Parliament, Higher Education and Training Minister Bladen Nzimande has conceded that the bursary scheme is not enough to meet the growing demand from students.
Funding for universities is not enough. We'll be open about that. We will continue to ask for more from government as a department.
We've always said that the NSFAS budget must be 16 billion rand, and that no qualifying student must be prevented from studying just because they cannot afford to do so.
There's been concern about citrus exports to Europe and investment contracts.
There are more opportunities for us to sell sugar, wine, ethanol, some fruit products than we had before, and that could create jobs.
That's Business News, weekdays at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. My guest today is the Minister in the Presidency, Jeff Radebe. Now, Minister, welcome back. As we go towards wrapping up the program, I asked the question, does the ANC not want to be asked questions in Parliament?
No, no, no. The ANC has been elected by a majority of South African people, more than 62%. We are accountable to our people. We are accountable to Parliament, both in the National Assembly and in the National Council of Provinces. But we cannot allow a situation to persist where parliamentary decorum is being gutted by people who have no care about the institutions of democracy in our country. What the ANC is saying is that Parliament, through its own institutions and structures, must amend rules such that these insults that are being held, especially to our President and the Deputy President, should not proceed. You'll recall the President was called by Parliament to answer questions, but he was unable to answer questions because of the disturbance and the chaos that erupted there. Our people look with horror at what is happening in our Parliament. We don't want to be a laughingstock of the world. That's why that chaos, that anarchy must come to an end.
Actually, one religious leader said that sometimes it's better to watch National Geographic than watch debates, because what happens, they just degenerate into something else.
Definitely. Our people deserve better. So when the President, the Deputy President, or any member of Parliament and ministers are being asked questions in Parliament, Parliament itself must allow leaders to answer, so that our people can know the progress that we are attaining in consolidating this constitutional democracy.
Then the Secretary General of the ANC was quoted as saying that Parliament must protect the President and the Deputy President. What did he mean?
I'm sure you people in the media, you like to exaggerate things. What he was saying is what the NEC decided, that Parliament must create a conducive environment for debates to flow robustly. We don't want sweetheart questions. We need to be questioned so that we account to what we are doing. That's how we can be able to fortify and strengthen our constitutional democracy in South Africa. But if we are not allowed to reply, why are we being called to Parliament to answer questions? That's the basic question. So I do know that the presiding officers are going to be doing something in order to ensure that we restore the former glory of our Parliament, which is an institution that is established by our Constitution.
Well, the EFF has come out on numerous occasions saying that debate is being stifled in Parliament. They are not allowed to speak. They are not, whenever they stand up to say something, somebody from the ANC stands up on a point of order. Order, Chair. Then, you know.
I usually attend Parliament. I always see the EFF, that the ones that always put a point of order, frivolous point of order, must I add. That makes it impossible for the person who's trying to answer the question to speak. That's what is happening, not the other way around.
So what is going to happen? It has been said that some of these members are going to face disciplinary action.
There is a parliamentary process that is underway, but let's let it be finished by Parliament itself, because we as the executive, we cannot interfere in the workings of Parliament. So once that process has been concluded, I'm sure the presiding officers will be able to announce what the outcome is.
And two questions, or rather one question, which will probably link the ANC, the ANC Youth League, and government's youth employment strategy. The ANC Youth League seems to be dysfunctional, and we would expect it to influence policy, ANC policy on youth development and perhaps youth employment.
Well, the ANC Youth League is being revived now. As you know, it was crippled by those who left to join the EFF. Right now, there is a national task team that is preparing for the national conference of the Youth League, so that we can be able to ensure that the ANC which is the leading party, a governing party in South Africa, must have a vibrant wing of the youth that must be able to support the initiatives of government. I do know that the Youth League is participating in the structures of government through the National Youth Development Agency, and that is busy finalizing a process of getting a proper youth strategy in our country so that we can be able to ensure that this majority of South Africans, by the way,
yes,
who are a very youthful society. So the youth is a very important stakeholder in South Africa. So that's why we want to see the youth in schools. That's why we pay about 8 billion rand per annum for student bursaries for the youth. We want also youth to be in employment, but above all, we want youth entrepreneurs, so that the ambitions of youth must not to get a job only, but also to be a job creator.
Is the ANC interested on who will become or should become the leader of the ANC Youth League?
Not at all. We don't enter into leadership context on our leagues, so the youth themselves, the branches of the ANC Youth League, must decide who is best to lead the Youth League, who must take this Youth League to the next level, and that is to support our efforts of reaching that 5% annual growth, so that we can be able to ensure that going forward in the second phase of our democratic transition, we really implement a radical economic transformation of South African society.
Minister Jeff Radebe, let's leave it there.
Pleasure.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guest and to you for watching the show. Your feedback via email, questiontime@sabc.co.za, or you can tweet us. Our Twitter handle is @questiontime24. From me and the rest of the crew, have yourself a wonderful time. Goodbye.
Good evening and welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
When you cross the line, what went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew who had won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
What is wrong with African players? Why are they not winning?
Our officials, they don't look at the bigger picture of players being happy before they go to the pitch, because mind game is very important.
Seek ye first the goals and playing the tactical strategy on the field of play, and all other things shall be added unto you. Don't put money before.
African coaches, did they do well?
I think so far they are doing well.
I do not agree. Sometimes localis leca is dangerous, because I'm telling you, he who cut the road does not know that his back is zigzag.
Ghana proved to be a damp squib.
You cannot go to war with chickens. You go to war with your best commanders.
What will it take for Africa to make it at international level?
Bring professional coaches from anywhere, whether from Mars, Moon, Jupiter, to come and coach and get us the results. That's what we want. You can't be a coach simply because you play football. And Anam, do you have to be a drunkard in order to own a bottle store? No.
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.